We gave our players a couple of days off. That decision came from a couple different viewpoints. First was there's such a big gap when we decided to move the original game, the Missouri State game, up a week into August. That triggered an earlier start on OTAs and also an earlier start into training camp, which has been going very well. And we knew once the decision was made at the Big 12 level to back the season up and ultimately backing our Missouri State game up a couple of weeks, we knew that we certainly weren't going to be able and didn't feel it was going to be the right thing to go 6.5, 7 straight weeks of training camp before you play a game. And so we knew at some point we were going to need to give our guys a break. And we honestly were planning on doing it a little bit later than what we did, but that news changed it. And then I think also, and I know we referenced this in our statement, the uncertainty, certainly in the last week in college football on if it was even going to go forward was a factor in the timing. The other factor to us in going ahead and doing that earlier rather than later was feeling like that if we did have, anybody come back and test positive for COVID, or did have anybody get dinged on a contact trace, that it gave us plenty of time to handle those situations, to get those guys isolated back with the team, hopefully if everything goes to plan, certainly in time for getting ready for the season. And so, we felt like it was the right decision at the time, and so happy to get our guys back today. I would announce that we did conduct a COVID test as planned with our players last night, got the results this morning. We had 9 players test positive for COVID. We had a couple of others, a relatively small number, that have been isolated due to the contact tracing. The contact tracing, I think, as we've explained to you guys, is done by the state health department here in Oklahoma. So we're very aggressive about removing anybody that could have had any potential contact. We remove them from the team, put them in quarantine. And then if the state health department deems that they weren't a high-risk contact, then we've been able to add them back in. And so disappointed by the news. Obviously, we've done such a tremendous job, really this entire time. And certainly, when you give your players some time that there is risk in that. And so the 2 times that we've had any serious number of cases have been when we brought our players back originally, and then here after having a few days where we have not had any organized team activities. And so it's one, it's disappointing. 2, it's an opportunity for us to continue to learn, continue to educate ourselves, because the reality is this isn't the NBA. This is college football. We can try to minimize these risks as much as we possibly want, but we're never going to be able to eliminate them 100%. We don't have a bubble. And so we get that we're all going to have to continue to work to do a better job on all accounts. We're still very confident in the plan that we've had. And I would still reference the, almost, well over a month-long period of success when our players were here with us every day that we went through and were able to substantially minimize positive tests, and then very confident in the protocols that we've had when we've had a positive test, whether it's somebody that did test positive or somebody that wasn't, that they did get knocked as a contact. And so, obviously we're going to continue to monitor that very, very closely, which we have, and we'll continue to do so. And like all this, this is new, and we're confident in our policies. We're confident in what we're doing, but we're also understand that there's going to be curveballs. There's going to be things that come up where we have to adjust. And we've, I think, shown a willingness to do that up to this point, and we're going to continue to do so. Would also announce from an injury standpoint, 4 guys, Caleb Kelly, Kason Grant, Marcus Hicks, and Justin Harrington have all had some lower extremity injuries that required medical attention. Those guys will all miss a substantial part of this season. Harrington's we knew about. That was something that had occurred before he got on campus, but all of those guys will be limited for for an extended period. Practice-wise, we're certainly been excited about the way these guys have practiced. We really had a great stretch of practice before we took this break. Guys, it's been fun to get back on the field with them, and we just all the Zoom meetings, all the things going on. It's just been refreshing, and the guys have really worked. And can you imagine a college football player right now with everything that's circulating in their minds, the uncertainty, all that's going on, and I've just been very, very proud of how these guys have handled it. They've been willing. They've done a great job within our facilities, of our protocols, and then of attacking each day. And it's been fun to see this team start to come together. Would also reference a couple of things as far as the job that our guys have done in this facility, and then our confidence that we can continue to push forward and continue to do the right thing, talking about COVID and all the things around that. We've continued to practice in masks, which I've been, most college football teams right now are not doing, and our team has done it willingly and has done a great job. And so been very pleased with that. We continue to screen each and every player and staff member before they come into our facility each and every day, both temperature and also a form that they have to fill out each and every day. And just the compliance with that around our facility, I think, has given us a lot of confidence in when we have our players here that we can create a very, very safe environment. Like I said, the area that our team has got to do a better job on is when we're not here. And we've known forever that was going to be the major concern. We've been able to track back every one of these positives, and they've all been community-based infections. When our team went home, or when we gave our team time off here the last several days, over 75% of our team didn't leave Norman. And so that's going to be the risk, and that's going to be the area where obviously not just our players, but players all over the country are going to have to do a great job when they're out of these facilities, because I do think we and a number of other institutions are proving that we can keep them healthy and really mitigate a lot of risk within these facilities. And the key is going to be is when they're not here, how good of a job can we all do? And it's up to all of us, and obviously something for our program and our team that we've got to do a better job of going forward, and that we fully expect that we will. So like I said, with that, excited to get back to ball. Can't wait to get back on the field. We'll continue to make every adjustment needed, like we always do.
Okay, thanks, Coach. We'll get to questions. We'll begin with Ryan Aber of the Oklahoman, and then Eric Bailey. Ryan?
Yeah, Lincoln, given everything you just said, do you regret at all sending the team home for a week? And also, does that raise your anxiety level now that the students are back on campus and there's going to be so many more people around your players?
Yeah, no, that's a hindsight decision. I mean, yeah, it'd be pretty easy for me to say right now that I regret it. I also feel like if I keep a team hemmed up here for a 6 or 7 week training camp, that I probably would regret that too. And so I think the reality is our players are not going to be in this facility all the time. That is the reality. We don't have a bubble. We don't have a hotel that we can put them in and not let them out other than to go to class and come here. And so for us, it's going to be, we as a staff, we as a team have to do a better job of educating and mitigating as much as we possibly can when they're outside of this facility. And it's got to be a learning experience for us. I mean, I don't classify it as just that, because obviously this is serious, and having guys infected, we take that incredibly serious, as serious as you possibly can. But we do have to learn from this, and what we've learned up to this point is when they're here, we've done a pretty good job. We got to continue to do well and get better. When they're out of here, that's been the most danger. And I think, what you referenced in terms of students coming back, I think that's a concern of every single college football coach in the country right now, is how is that managed? Because, the numbers game becomes much more difficult any way you slice it when these students all get back to campus, like what's happening here at our university right now. So do I regret it? At the end of the day, I know why we made the decision. And at the end of the day, our players and our staff, when we're out of this facility, have got to do a great job, whether it's a 2-day break or whether we're just out of there for a night and back in the morning. It's the same decisions and the same protocols that we have to go through. We have to be diligent. And this is obviously a great example of that.
Okay, let's go to Eric Bailey of the Tulsa World, and then Joe Bettner. Eric?
Hey, Lincoln, thanks for meeting us today. With the college football decisions made this week, is there a competitive advantage on the field by playing games and maybe even off the field recruiting that OU may have over other conferences that aren't playing? And also, how much would you consider immediate transfers from those conferences not playing?
It's a hard question to answer because it probably is going to end up depending on if these other conferences, do in fact play in the spring. If everybody ends up at the end of the day playing the same amount of games, practices, all that, I don't know that there's a huge competitive advantage. Recruiting will be interesting. I think a little difficult to predict, and that how does a recruit and family view an institution, or maybe an institution, that's in a certain conference that either decided to play or not play. I mean, I think it'll be interesting to watch, but I don't know that I could predict that right now. And then what was the second part of your question, Eric?
Just about, would you consider immediate transfers from some of those schools?
Yeah, no, we'll always, look at who's out there. I know there's some difficult decisions to be made there. And again, the spring football thing being a factor there too. But if somebody's available, we'll certainly do our due diligence.
Thanks, Lincoln.
Thank you.
Okay, Joe Bettner with the Norman transcript, and then Jason Kersey. Joe?
Yeah, Lincoln, just kind of on that note of Big Ten, Pac-12 not playing, I'm curious what you think about the credibility of a college football playoff this year with having so many conferences opt out. And at that same token, I mean, how much do you worry about another Power 5 league dropping out in this season, kind of just crumbling, I guess?
Yeah, I think there's so many scenarios and so much going on that it's kind of, I think for me at least, when I look at it, it's hard for me to even think about a playoff or any of that right now. I think more than any time, it's so important for us to be focused on the day-to-day, and because this does change. And if you try to think about 2-3 months from now, I mean, this thing changes. It feels like every day. And so it almost can become kind of maddening in a way. And so I've tried to do my best to focus on, each and every day, the things that I can control, getting these guys ready, keeping these guys safe. I mean, it's been, a lot on everybody's plate around here. And so it's almost, at least within these walls, like you're so busy in the moment that I hadn't thought a lot about the playoff. I get that there's a lot going on, and this thing could go 100 different directions right now. So we're just focused on, one, keeping our guys safe, two, trying to get this football team ready to go play. And then, when the sun comes up tomorrow, there'll be probably a new set of circumstances, and we got to be ready to deal with it each and every day.
Thanks, Lincoln.
Okay, got Jason Kersey of The Athletic, and then John Hoover. Jason?
Hey, Lincoln. We've talked a lot through this about player mental health, and I'm wondering, you mentioned all these guys going down, especially, I mean, geez, a guy like Caleb Kelly, who's already been through so much. How has that affected the team's morale? And especially when there's all this other uncertainty about whether or not there'll be a season. Has that been worse than maybe it normally would?
Yeah, no, Jason, that's a great question. And I would say before we had a schedule and kind of as this uncertainty kind of hit a boiling point, here in the last several days, it definitely affected it. There's no question about it. I think you get thoughts in players' minds, which I totally agree with and absolutely understand of, why am I out here risking my body if I don't even have a Big 12 schedule out. I don't even know if our conference is going to play football. And that was part of the reason why we shut it down here. I mean, without a doubt. Not that we were getting a lot of pushback from our players. They've been great, but you could just feel that. And I get it. I did not – the ultimate decision, I was on the phone with Joe C. And as we were talking through it, that was my ultimate decision on it to do it. We were going to give them time regardless, but to do it when we did it was based on I don't feel like it's right of me to go out and practice our guys. And football is a risky sport in any time period, not even having a schedule and not even knowing that we're going to play. I do believe now having a schedule, knowing that the Big 12 Conference has a plan to move forward towards a season has helped that. It's given some clarity and some direction, which our players needed, no question about it.
Thanks, Lincoln.
Okay, we've got John Hoover with SI Sooners, and then Keegan Renault. John?
There we go, unmuted. Can you hear me okay?
Gotcha.
Cool. So now that you've actually had Spencer getting one reps in practice for an extended period of time, what qualities do you like in him so far that you've seen of him, Lincoln? Maybe he's doing something better now than he did when spring started. And then an additional question about the area of leadership. It's such a strange time. You're breaking in a new quarterback, a young guy who's got to kind of display those leadership qualities. How's that coming along?
Yeah, I could tell, John, a big difference with those guys, and that they really took advantage of the time that we were away. I think those guys really came back in a good place mentally. All the different Zoom meetings, as maddening as it was to hop on a screen like this every single day, and that's all you could do, knowing that you could have been out there in spring football. I mean, that was tough. But there was also an opportunity to cover and spend so much more time with them than we would have ever had. And the hope is you see some of those results when you actually get back on the field. And, granted, we haven't been through just a terribly long stretch yet, but you can tell Tanner, Spencer, and then even Chandler, those guys are a lot further ahead than I think they would have been without all that time. So I've been pleased with the way those guys have played. Excited about their progress, and I'm so excited to get the next several weeks under their belt and continue to push more. Yeah, from a leadership standpoint, no, you're right. It's an interesting time for any leader, especially, all of these guys who are young quarterbacks and young leaders in our program. I think it's also provided those some opportunities for them to kind of step up and become leaders. And I see strong leadership characteristics with all those guys. They do it a little bit differently. They have different personalities. Spencer's a little bit more laid back. Tanner's a little bit more kind of not locked in, but a little bit more serious of a personality. Chandler maybe somewhere in between, but the thing you see is they're willing. They're not scared to lead. They're not scared to step up to the front of the line and assert themselves, which I think is the courage to do it and the willingness to do it, to me, are important. And they all three have that.
Okay, let's go to Keegan Renault with Sooners Wire, and then Nicole Auerbach. Keegan?
Yeah, Lincoln. Just curious, you got Jalen Conyers listed as a wide receiver on the roster. Just where is he going to fit within the offense, and how much of an impact can a guy like that have right away?
It'll be fun to see. He's a talented kid. He's a big kid that moves very, very well. He's in that category of, we've had a lot of body types like that, whether it's Mark Andrews, Grant Calcaterra, and then recently, Carson Meyer, Jeremiah Hall, Stogner, Braden Willis. I mean, there's, Mikey Henderson's another guy that's kind of intriguing in that way too. So I think the goal this year for him will be, let's try to find a place where he could potentially help this team this year, and that may evolve and change. But it'll be fun to see. He's a talented kid. You love his size, kind of effortless movements. And so a lot of interesting possibilities, but I don't know that I would want to nail it down right now because I do think he's got a skill set that could be pretty wide ranging.
Okay, Nicole Auerbach with The Athletic, and then Jenny Carlson.
Hey, Lincoln, you mentioned this a little bit earlier when you were talking about recruiting and all the potential, things that we don't know yet are going to unfold from this. But I'm curious, obviously everyone wants to get clarity about eligibility, scholarship limits for next year. What's your preferred model? Like, how would you like to see all of that shake out?
The eligibility is a tough question because it's like there's two sides of it. I mean, the side one is, you feel if a player does have to miss time or chooses to miss time because of COVID, you get it. And I mean, it's a tough scenario. And part of you sits there and says, man, I want to give relief to everybody. And then there's also the realist that you understand your decisions have repercussions. And if you do that, what is the impact on college football rosters? What's the impact on the future? All of a sudden, if you give all these guys extended time, does that cut the number of young guys you can sign and therefore cut the number of opportunities that high school players would get? I mean, there's so much to it. So I don't know that I have like a direct position on it other than I do believe there needs to be some relief. I fully support that. But I do think we also have to keep in mind the long-term repercussions of it as well. And it's not an easy answer. It's not, I don't know that there's a right answer, and that's the hard thing. I mean, everybody's going to be affected in some way. And so, a lot of times to me, the best answers lie somewhere in the middle. So hopefully we can find the best place to give some relief where it's absolutely needed, but also not damage too much of what's going on in the future as well.
Okay, let's go to Jenny Carlson with the Oklahoman, and then Lee Benson.
Hey, Lincoln, you were mentioning practicing in masks and face coverings. What's been the reaction, or how have you seen that impact guys? Is it tougher on certain positions opposed to others? And then is that something you are looking at continuing to do in games moving forward?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we've experimented with a few things. We've done, we initially did the cloth covering over the face mask. We've got every player in the eye, the face shield. But we've experimented with three things: cloth covering, which effective, not bad as far as breathing. The big problem with that is vision. You just all of a sudden, you've got something covering right here. It really limits the vision, which is dangerous. We've experimented with the plastic shield that's over the face and the face mask. Again, breathing wise, not awful there from what we've been told by our players. Biggest issue there is that fogging up. And then, what's your answer if you get in a game where it's raining or, you're dealing with the elements. And then we've experimented with just the normal mask like our guys wear all other parts, just being on underneath the helmet. Probably have had the most success with that because it doesn't get knocked off. It doesn't fog up. I think our guys are getting used to having them on all the time. We've had to adjust our practice schedule to give them more breaks, rotating guys a little bit more because, from a, just catching your breath, their bodies are working a little bit harder. It is more difficult with those things on. I think it's very doable, and our guys have had, we've been able to have, still very, very good practices with that. But, it's going to be an adjustment, whatever we decide. As far as games, haven't received, really much guidance on that yet on what's going to be required. But if given up to us, we're going to have our faces covered some way, somehow, because just, again, the health of the student athlete being priority number one. And there's no replacement for having a mask or something that acts as a mask on at any point. And so that's why we've been stressing it both on the practice field and anywhere else.
Thanks.
Let's go to Lee Benson with KWTV and then Brandon Drum.
Hey, Coach, I was wondering if you could provide an update on the appeals process in regards to some of the players who could not play in the Peach Bowl. And in addition to that, just curious, since the game schedule has been reduced from 12 games to 10 games, any potential further discipline, does that factor into any of that?
Yeah, no clarification on that. It's being discussed. I think it's been, and you understand why I put on the back burner a little bit with trying to figure out how the season's going to unfold. But it's being discussed because, obviously that world is changing and has changed in so many different ways, and really kind of an archaic rule for college football. So I know they're working on it. I do know that the reduction of the schedule is also being discussed and how it pertains, but I don't have any answers for you on it right now.
Thanks.
Okay, Brandon Drum with OU Insider and then Kerry Murdoch.
Hey, Lincoln. People talk about, everything they've learned throughout their coaching career. How has all these events that have happened over the last, 7 to 8 months kind of transformed you as a coach? And then secondly, the running back situation, can you kind of touch on how some of those guys have been looking?
Yeah, no, it's challenged in some different ways. I was laughing the other day. I don't think I've ever made this many schedules. We've made more schedules this year that we haven't used than the ones we've used. It definitely challenges your organization. I think your ability to adjust on the run, because it feels like you're kind of, or on the fly, it feels like you're kind of doing everything on the fly right now. But you got to really trust it. I think it puts a premium on your staff and the people you have around you, and how much you trust them, because it takes, everybody's really got to be on the same page, because you just simply can't organize and plan like we're used to doing. And so you got to make these like quick adjustments, and everybody's got to be in lockstep, seemingly every hour of every day, as these things continually do change. So challenging, but I'm proud of the way our staff's handled it. The running back position, it's been fun to watch. It's a very talented group. I think Kennedy's come back in, some of the best shape that he's been in. Excited how he looks physically right now. TJ Pledger's had a really strong opening to camp, similar to last year. He's playing well. He's in shape. He's confident. He knows what we're doing. Been pleased with some of the young guys. Ramondre Stevenson, I would also add, much improved from last year, much greater understanding of what we're doing. He's also doing well. And then been pleased with the young guys. Marcus Major, it's great to have him healthy, back strong, fast. And again, another guy that just so much more locked into what we're doing now. You just tell he's so much more confident. And then Seth McGowan's really been a bright spot in camp as well. He's as talented, or maybe, just as talented as we thought, maybe even a little bit more. It's has some impressive qualities for a young guy. So no, it's a good room. And it's been fun to see, DeMarco coaching those guys. He's done a tremendous job with them so far. It's a competitive, hungry, talented room right now.
Okay, Kerry Murdoch with Sooner Scoop. Only one question today, please, Kerry.
How about a combo question, Mike? Lincoln, any idea how many of your players are going to be exclusively taking online classes? Was that anything you pushed for? And also, any thoughts on the saliva test being approved by the FDA today?
Yeah, we will have more players in online classes. It certainly won't be a blanket policy. Most of that, honestly, Kerry, is just kind of what the university's gone to. It's just going to be a higher percentage overall of online classes. We still are going to have some players in class. And again, we feel with the university's policies of everybody, having to mask staff, all other students, certainly our players, that we can provide a level of safety there that doesn't give us a ton of concern. When I say a ton of concern, relative to other things. And so we'll have a mixture, certainly. And then as far as the saliva testing, we're keeping it up to date on that. Scott Anderson, Brock Schnabel, our crew are, working through that with our we're not going to put a test in front that we don't feel like is completely accurate. We have gone back and forth and done a few different tests here, all of them nasal, but there's different types. So we're trying to find the one that's, right now been the most accurate, because we're not going to sacrifice anything there. And then after that becomes, how invasive and how quickly can you get results, all of those other factors. So, I mean, we're on a test right now that's not very invasive at all as far as the nose, and we've been getting results quickly and felt good about the accuracy of those. So if something else comes out better, we certainly won't hesitate to continue to dive deeper into it.
Thanks, Lincoln.
Okay, we've hit the end of our window. It's 2:00 unless
Mike, if you get a couple more, I can go 5 more if you need to.
5 more minutes.
Yes.
Okay. All right, we'll go to Nathan Thompson with Fox 23 in Tulsa.
I might regret that in a minute.
Coach, just you guys have obviously been working so hard on doing all the precautions you can for COVID-19. With just letting players go for a couple of days and getting 9 positives, does that make you worried more that you're going to start this season and in the course of a month or two that you're going to have to call it off because too many people are coming back positive?
I think it's a sense of reality for us, and what we're really up against, and I think what we're up against is something that's doable. But again, the key is going to be for our players, our staff, and I don't want to speak for other teams, but I think it's going to be pretty widespread across the country, is how well can this virus be mitigated or stopped or contained when players and staff members are not in these facilities. It's there's so many unknowns out there and so many variables when they leave here. And when you can't create a bubble, everybody wants the 100% risk-free thing. And that just, when you don't have a true bubble, that's impossible. And so I think it's, am I disappointed by it? Yes, I am. Am I very confident in the policies and procedures and the success we've had up to this point? Yes, I am. I see a clear vision of how we get there, but we got to do it. And this is this just highlights how important that is. And that to me will end up being one of the determining factors if we are able to play this season and complete this season or not. And we've all got to do our part.
Okay, let's go to Curtis Fitzpatrick with Fox 25 and Sports Animal.
Yeah, Lincoln, wondering, has anybody on your team told you that they could opt out, or they're on the fence, or has anybody actually indicated that they are going to opt out?
Yeah, Curtis, we've had some good meetings with our guys. We actually they were already scheduled meetings with both our team, with all of our physicians here this morning. Not the first one that we've had, certainly not the last one, but just continually updating these guys. And then we also had a meeting today with all the parents of our players, along with, again, physicians, administration, just to be as transparent as we possibly can, to continue to update them with all the information that we have, so that, people can make decisions. Because that's one thing we've told our families, our players, is listen, we're not all in the same situation. On the field, we're not all, our family situations, our health situations. I mean, we all look at this through our own lens and how it directly relates to us. And so you can't make a blanket decision for everybody. Everybody's got to look at this individually and make the decision that's best for them. And our deal is we're going to be supportive of that decision. We're going to make sure you have all the information you could possibly need to make those decisions. And then once they're made, we're going to deal with it and we're going to move on. And so at this point, we haven't had any players that have decided to opt out. Will it happen? It's hard to say. It certainly could. And if it does, we understand that and respect that and certainly have a plan for that. But you get in a situation like this that everybody's got to make, a decision based on them and their situation. And I think the key is communication, and the key is having a healthy respect for whatever that decision is.
Okay, Coach, you got time for one more. We've got Sam Kahn from ESPN.
Okay.
Hey, Lincoln. I think it's been anecdotal so far, but I have seen some recruits opt out of their senior seasons in preparation for and possibly enrolling in January across the country. I don't know necessarily about you guys, but I'm curious if that becomes a trend and you've got guys that basically haven't played, in pads for a year. I'm curious how that impacts, how you guys look at, the recruits coming in, things of that sort.
Yeah, I mean, it gives you one less season of evaluation, their development, all that. I mean, probably like anything, there's positives and negatives to it. It also, takes some of the hitting off their bodies through that time too, and maybe you get a fresher player as well. So is it going to change, our decision to bring somebody in or not? Probably not. Does it maybe make a difference on how you develop them when they get here and kind of their plan? Very potentially, but I think that would be very much on an individual basis. Because I mean, I think for every player, when they come into our program, we try to take their history, medical history, playing history, all that into account. And then you try to set the best plan going forward to get them where you think they can be and where they want to be. And so that we would do the same thing, obviously there, whether they played the season or not.